I'm Audrey Mitchell, 29, and tonight my boyfriend of 3 years told me I had no future. We were sitting in Bellini's, the very restaurant where I serve overpriced pasta to people like James Bradford, successful, polished, destined for greatness. The irony wasn't lost on me when his perfectly whitened teeth spoke those words across our anniversary dinner. What surprised me most wasn't the cruelty, but my response. A strange calm washing over me after years of emotional turbulence. I simply said, "Okay." Before I share what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe to follow my unexpected journey from rock bottom to somewhere I never imagined. 3 years before that fateful dinner, I was barely keeping my head above water. I'd abandoned my photography degree in junior year when Mom's cancer diagnosis turned our world upside down. Dad had been gone since I was 14, heart attack during a business trip, leaving me as her only support system. The medical bills devoured our modest savings, forcing me to pick up waitressing at Bellini's, an upscale Italian restaurant in Manhattan where the tips could actually cover rent. By the time Mom finally went into remission, I was 26 with half a college degree and a resume full of service industry experience. Photography became my night and weekend passion, urban landscapes, honest portraits of everyday New Yorkers, moments most people walked past without noticing. Not exactly the kind of portfolio that paid bills. James became a regular at Bellini's every Thursday night, always requesting my section. He was 30, freshly promoted at Bradford and Winters Investment Banking. Yes, that Bradford his father was founding partner. With his tailored suits, Ivy League polish, and generous tips, he represented everything I wasn't: established, connected, financially secure. "You have an interesting perspective," he commented one evening, after noticing my photography book peeking out of my bag during a slow shift. "Amateur, but there's potential there." That was James, a compliment wrapped in assessment, always positioning himself as the authority. Still, when he asked me to dinner, I said yes. His world seemed like a glimpse into an alternate universe where people didn't count coins for subway fare. Our differences fascinated us both initially. He called my tiny Bushwick apartment authentic and asked endless questions about my childhood in Queens. I was captivated by his confidence, the ease with which he navigated high-end spaces, the certainty with which he spoke about his future. "You just need the right opportunities," he assured me, 6 months into our relationship. "Someone to help you make the right connections." I ignored the implication that I couldn't succeed without his help. Just like I ignored how he subtly winced whenever a restaurant patron recognized me as their server, or how he suggested I not mention my job when meeting his college friends at the Hamptons house his parents owned. "It's just simpler," he explained. "People make assumptions." A year into dating, I discovered the text from Rachel, his colleague. Nothing explicitly romantic, but filled with inside jokes and late-night messages that crossed professional boundaries. "Getting drinks with the team. Miss your face already." Read one from a night he told me he was working late. When confronted, James turned it around with practiced precision. "You're being paranoid," he insisted, showing me more innocent parts of their conversation. "Rachel's married. We're just close colleagues." Then came the subtle shift. "This jealousy isn't attractive, Audrey. It shows insecurity." I apologized. For being insecure. For questioning him. The gaslighting was so effective, I actually felt grateful when he forgave me. The weekend after our fight, James whisked me away to the Hamptons to meet his closest friends. I spent 2 weeks tips on a dress that wouldn't embarrass him, practiced anecdotes that made my life sound more interesting, less struggling artist. "What do you actually do?" asked Garrett, James's boarding school friend, cocktail dangling between manicured fingers. "She's a photographer," James answered before I could, "and works at Bellini's while building her portfolio." The slight emphasis on Bellini's, the tight smile, the way conversations shifted to exclude me. These were red flags painted in bold strokes I deliberately ignored. That night, James held me close in the guest bedroom with its ocean view and 800 thread count sheets. "You did great tonight," he whispered. "Like I'd passed an evaluation. Everyone thinks you're wonderful." I fell asleep feeling like I'd survived an assessment rather than enjoyed a social gathering. The foundation was already cracking, but I was too invested in the fantasy to notice. The first year with James had genuine moments of connection that made the red flags easier to dismiss. For my birthday, he gifted me a Canon EOS R5 that I could never have afforded a professional-grade camera that left me speechless. "Now you can take real photos," he said, misunderstanding that equipment wasn't what made photography meaningful. Still, I was touched by his investment in my passion. We spent weekends exploring hidden corners of New York, James seemingly fascinated by the way I captured the city through my lens. He asked questions about composition and lighting, appearing genuinely interested in understanding my artistic perspective. "You have a gift for finding beauty in ordinary things," he once said, studying a photograph I'd taken of an elderly couple on a park bench. "It's almost like you see something no one else notices." Those words sustained me through countless cocktail parties and networking events where I felt increasingly out of place. When James suggested I move into his Upper East Side apartment after 14 months together, I ignored my hesitation. My Bushwick lease was ending, and the financial relief was undeniable. The shift was subtle at first. My eclectic furniture disappeared into storage. "It doesn't quite match the aesthetic," James explained. My photography books were relegated to the spare room rather than displayed in the living area. My schedule increasingly revolved around his corporate events and family obligations. Eleanor Bradford, James's mother, assessed me with the clinical precision of someone appraising underperforming real estate during our first meeting. "Photography," she repeated after James explained my passion. "How creative. Do you have any gallery shows coming up?" When I admitted I was still building my portfolio, her smile tightened. "Well, I suppose everyone needs hobbies." James's father collects vintage watches. The classification of my life's passion as a hobby stung, but James didn't correct her. Instead, he quickly steered the conversation toward his recent work achievements. That night, I realized my artistic aspirations existed as charming footnotes in the narrative of his successful life. My closest friend Tara became increasingly distant. Our coffee dates repeatedly rescheduled around James's impromptu work dinners or family events. "I barely recognize you anymore," she finally said during a rare lunch. "You don't talk about your photography. You're always checking your phone to make sure you don't miss his texts. You've become an accessory in someone else's life." I defended James vehemently, accusing Tara of jealousy. We didn't speak for months after that, another relationship sacrificed on the altar of keeping James happy. Meanwhile, I continued working at Bellini's, though James encouraged me to cut back my hours. "You don't really need the money now," he reasoned, "and it would give you more time for your photography." But the restaurant had become my last connection to independence. The tips I earned went into a separate account he didn't know about my secret insurance policy against complete financial dependence. My self-doubt grew as subtly as ivy climbing a wall. James never outright dismissed my photography, but his feedback carried implied criticism. "Interesting angle, though the professionals usually." Or, "It's good for someone without formal training." I poured my conflicted feelings into a new photography series, Urban Isolation, amid connection working on it during the hours James spent at the office. The local community center offered me a small exhibition space, my first real opportunity to display my work. "That's great, babe," James said distractedly when I shared the news, eyes never leaving his financial reports. "Let me know when it is." 2 days later, I overheard him on the phone with his friend Garrett. "Just considering my options," James said, voice lowered. "Audrey's great, but I always pictured ending up with someone more established. Someone who understands this world." I silently closed the door without confronting him, swallowing the hurt like a bitter pill. Instead of leaving, I doubled down on becoming the woman I thought he wanted, more polished, less artistic, someone worthy of the Bradford legacy. The real Audrey began to fade like an overexposed photograph, details washing out until only a vague outline remained. My exhibition at the community center became my secret lifeline, evidence that I existed beyond the confines of James's world. I spent weeks selecting and printing photographs, writing descriptions, and coordinating the small space with meticulous care. Though modest by gallery standards, It represented a legitimate first step in my photography career. Friday at 7, I reminded James that morning, trying to contain my nervous excitement. It's nothing fancy, but it means a lot to have you there. He kissed my forehead absently. Wouldn't miss it, babe. By 7:30, the small space had filled with fellow photographers, community center regulars, and a few curious locals. By 8:15, I stopped checking the door each time it opened. At 8:45, my phone finally buzzed with his message. Emergency client meeting. Can't get away. So sorry. Celebrate tomorrow? Disappointment settled in my stomach like concrete, but I maintained my composure, smiling through conversations and accepting compliments on work that suddenly felt hollow without his validation. Around 10 p.m., as I helped clean up, a community center volunteer scrolled through Instagram and inadvertently tilted her screen my way. There was James, drink in hand at the Aviary, one of Manhattan's exclusive cocktail lounges, his arm casually draped around Rachel from work. The location tag and timestamp left no room for misinterpretation. I waited up, sitting motionless on our pristine white couch until 1 a.m. when he stumbled in, loosened tie and alcohol-flushed cheeks, confirming what I already knew. "How was your emergency client meeting?" I asked, voice eerily calm. His momentary confusion morphed into practiced concern. Exhausting. These investors from Singapore are impossible to please. Interesting. I didn't realize Singapore investors frequented the Aviary, or that Rachel qualified as a client. The color drained from his face, replaced quickly by defensive anger. "You're spying on me now? Having friends follow me? Instagram is public, James. Just like your lies." I pulled up the post on my phone, watching his expression shift from indignation to calculated damage control. "It's not what you think." The meeting ended early, and the team wanted to decompress. "I didn't think you'd want me arriving late to your little exhibition and disrupting things." My little exhibition. The words hung between us, crystallizing everything. "You never intended to come, did you? Be realistic, Audrey. It's a community center in Queens, not Gagosian. I support your hobby, but you can't expect me to prioritize amateur night over actual career obligations." Each word struck with precision, targeting my deepest insecurities. I retreated to the bathroom, tears finally breaking free as I gripped the marble countertop. Through the closed door, I heard him sigh impatiently. "You're overreacting. Again. This emotional instability is exactly why I worry about your professional prospects." That night marked the first time I seriously considered ending our relationship. I packed a small bag while he slept, intending to go to a hotel, reclaim some independence. But morning found the bag still by the door, and me still in our bed, paralyzed by the terrifying prospect of starting over. James's apology came in the form of a platinum bracelet, presented over dinner at Per Se. No verbal acknowledgement of the hurt, just material compensation and the unspoken expectation that we move forward without addressing the wound. "I love how passionate you are," he said, fastening the bracelet around my wrist. "Even if sometimes I don't understand your artistic world." I accepted the peace offering, convincing myself that relationships required compromise. The bracelet felt like a shackle, but I wore it daily, a reminder of what forgiveness cost. 2 weeks later, Martin Turner, owner of a small gallery in Brooklyn, visited the community center and left his card, expressing interest in my urban isolation series. "Your perspective is unique," he said. "Raw but technically sophisticated. I'd love to discuss including your work in our emerging artists showcase." I floated home, clutching his business card like a winning lottery ticket. James was in the kitchen, scrolling through emails while picking at takeout sushi. "Martin Turner from Aperture Gallery wants to feature my work," I announced, unable to contain my excitement. "It's a real gallery, James. Small, but legitimate." He glanced up briefly. "Aperture? Never heard of it. Where is it exactly?" "Dumbo. It's known for launching new photographers." "Dumbo," he repeated, emphasis underscoring the perceived unimportance. "Well, that's a start, I suppose. Though honestly, if you're going to pursue this seriously, you should aim for Manhattan galleries. I could introduce you to Caroline Weintraub. Her family has that gallery in Chelsea. His response extinguished my excitement like water on a match. This wasn't about connections or prestige, it was about my work being recognized on its merit. But James couldn't see value unless it came wrapped in the right zip code. I'd rather earn recognition my way, I said quietly. That's the problem with artists, he replied, attention already returning to his email. So much pride, so little practicality. I didn't mention Martin Turner again, but I met with him the following week. For 1 hour in that small Brooklyn gallery, I felt like a real photographer with legitimate prospects. It was the first decision I'd made without seeking James's approval in nearly 3 years. A tiny rebellion, but significant, the first crack in the foundation of my carefully constructed compliance. Spring brought unexpected renewal when Maya Foster, my former photography professor and mentor, reached out through Instagram after seeing my community center exhibition photos online. Your work has evolved beautifully, she said over coffee in a Greenwich Village cafe. The technical skills we can teach, but your perspective, that raw emotional honesty, that's innate. Maya had left academia to open her own gallery in Soho, focusing on emerging artists whose work explored social themes. Her silver-streaked hair and paint-splattered jacket represented everything I'd once aspired to: creative integrity, uncompromised by conventional expectations. I'm curating a show called Unseen America this fall, she explained, sliding a formal invitation across the table. I'd like to feature your Urban Isolation series. 6 to 8 pieces, properly mounted and framed. We could sell them anywhere from $1,200 to $2,500 each. The numbers struck me silent. Not life-changing money in Manhattan terms, but validation that carried more value than dollars. This is a legitimate opportunity, Audrey, Maya continued, misinterpreting my silence as hesitation. Your work deserves to be seen by serious collectors. Yes, I managed finally. Absolutely yes. For the first time in years, I felt true excitement bubbling beneath my surface. Not the polite enthusiasm I'd learned to display at James's work functions, but genuine, unfiltered joy. I spent the afternoon wandering through Soho, imagining my photographs on Maya's gallery walls, visualizing people, connecting with my perspective. By the time I arrived home, I'd formulated a plan to tell James over dinner, not seeking permission, but sharing good news with my partner. James texted that he'd made reservations at Le Bernardin to celebrate something important. The timing seemed perfect. We would both have achievements to toast. I selected a deep blue dress James had once admired, applied careful makeup, and pulled my hair into a simple updo. The woman in the mirror looked polished, but still recognizable as me, a balance I rarely achieved when dressing for James's world. Le Bernardin gleamed with understated luxury, all muted colors, impeccable service, and diners who never needed to check prices. James stood when I approached, kissing my cheek with practiced affection. You look lovely, he said, the compliment feeling more like approval of a successfully completed assignment than genuine admiration. Throughout the appetizer course, James spoke about market projections and client acquisitions, his excitement building toward whatever announcement warranted this celebration. I listened attentively, asking appropriate questions, playing my supporting role with 3 years of practiced perfection. Enough about my day, he said finally, reaching for my hand across the table. I've been keeping something important from you. My heart quickened, mind racing through possibilities from proposal to breakup, both equally terrifying for entirely different reasons. Bradford and Winters is establishing a London office, he continued, eyes bright with ambition, and they've asked me to head the international division. Executive Vice President, effective immediately. That's amazing, I replied automatically. Genuine happiness for his achievement, mingling with confusion about what this meant for us. We'll relocate in September, he continued, squeezing my hand. The package is incredible: company apartment in Kensington, car service, membership at the Wellington Club. You'll love London, such history, great museums. You can take photography classes there if you want. The presumption struck me like a physical blow. No discussion, No consideration of my life or aspirations, just an expectation that I would transplant myself to accommodate his career. James, I hesitated, reorganizing my thoughts. That's a tremendous opportunity for you. But I just got an offer too. Maya Foster wants my work for a Soho gallery exhibition this fall. It's a significant opportunity for my career. His expression shifted subtly, brows drawing together, mouth tightening at the corners. A gallery in Soho? I've never heard you mention this Maya person. She was my professor before I left school. She has an excellent reputation in photography circles. Photography circles, he repeated, the phrase dripping with dismissal. Audrey, we're talking about a career-defining opportunity with one of the world's premier financial institutions versus a small gallery show that, let's be honest, few people will see. The comparison crystallized 3 years of subtle devaluation. My achievements would always be measured against his and found wanting. My work matters to me, I said quietly. This exhibition is my first real chance to establish myself as a professional photographer. Professional photographer, he echoed with a short laugh. Be realistic. How much will this exhibition actually pay? How will it advance a sustainable career? You're 29, Audrey? It's time to think about stability, not chasing artistic recognition that may never come. Each question hammered at insecurities he'd helped cultivate over years. But beneath the familiar doubt, something new was forming a solid core of certainty that I couldn't abandon this opportunity. I need to see this through, I said, voice steadier than I expected. We could try long distance until the exhibition ends, then reassess. James set down his fork with deliberate care, disappointment evident in every controlled movement. I've supported your photography hobby for years. I bought you professional equipment. I overlooked the fact that you're still waiting tables at 29. But I can't build a future with someone who doesn't prioritize actual career advancement. His words hung between us, the culmination of 1,000 small dismissals, carefully disguised as practical concern. It's not a hobby, I said. The restaurant's ambient noise suddenly too loud, the space between us too vast. The London position starts in September. He continued as if I hadn't spoken. I need someone who's all in a true partner, not someone still trying to find herself. I need to know by next week if you're coming with me. The ultimatum lay between us like a loaded weapon. In his world, the choice was obvious. Only a fool would choose a gallery exhibition over London, over him, over financial security and social advancement. For the first time in 3 years, I saw our relationship with perfect clarity, not as the supportive partnership I'd imagined, but as a carefully constructed arrangement where my dreams remained subordinate to his vision of success. I hope you'll make the sensible decision, James said, signaling for the check without asking if I wanted dessert. The London opportunity is exactly what we've been working toward. What you've been working toward, I corrected quietly. His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means I never agreed that my life's purpose was supporting your career trajectory. The waiter approached with impeccable timing, preventing James's immediate response. I watched him sign the receipt with the same fountain pen his father had given him for graduation, the Bradford legacy captured in a simple motion. Let's not do this here, he said once we were alone again, voice tight with controlled irritation. Do what? Have an honest conversation about my future? About our future? My voice remained surprisingly steady, because it seems relevant given you've unilaterally decided we're moving to London. I'm offering you an incredible opportunity, Audrey. Most women would be thrilled. I'm not most women. And I'm not a accessory to be packed up and relocated whenever your career demands it. His expression hardened. This is exactly the problem. You lack ambition. You're comfortable serving pasta and taking amateur photos while I'm building something substantial. I need a partner with vision. I have vision, I countered. It's just different from yours. Different? He laughed without humor. You work in a restaurant, Audrey. Your photography is mediocre at best. This gallery show? It's a vanity exhibition, not a career. I've indulged this fantasy because it seemed harmless. But I can't build a life with someone who has no future. The words struck with surgical precision, targeting every insecurity he'd carefully cultivated over 3 years. But instead of pain, I felt an unexpected clarity, as if seeing our relationship through a perfectly focused lens for the first time. "If that's how you feel, perhaps we shouldn't be together," I said simply. James blinked, clearly unprepared for this response. In our practice dynamic, my role was to apologize, to accommodate, to prioritize his needs above my own. My script deviation visibly unnerved him. "You're being emotional," he said dismissively. "This is exactly why I worry about your professional prospects. Successful people make rational decisions. Choosing my own path is perfectly rational to me." "Your own path?" His voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. "A gallery show in Soho over London? That's not rational, Audrey. That's self-sabotage." "No, James. It's self-respect." His face flushed with anger. "I can't believe you're throwing away everything we've built because of artistic pride. I've given you 3 years of my life, introduced you to my world, helped you see beyond that working-class mindset. And this is how you repay me? By choosing some pathetic exhibition over our future?" Each word revealed the transactional nature of his love investment, expecting specific returns. The restaurant, once simply elegant, now felt suffocating. The final piece clicked into place. This was the very restaurant where I'd worked when we met, where he'd first assessed me as an interesting diversion from women in his social circle. "I think we're done here," I said quietly. "Clearly," he snapped, dropping his napkin on the table. "When you're struggling to pay rent on a waitress's salary, don't come crawling back." "I won't. I can't be with someone who has no future," he declared with theatrical finality, standing to leave. I looked up at him, handsome, privileged, utterly convinced of his own superiority, and felt nothing but relief. "Okay," I said simply. The response confused him. He hovered momentarily, clearly expecting tears or pleading. When neither materialized, he turned and walked out, shoulders rigid with indignation. I remained seated, breathing deeply as 3 years of performative perfection melted away. Carlos, a waiter I'd worked with before James rescued me from service work, approached cautiously. "Everything all right, Audrey?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. Surprisingly, yes, I answered, realizing it was true. "I think I just found my future." Outside, rain had started, gentle spring drops that seemed cleansing rather than dreary. I walked 20 blocks home, letting the rain wash away the makeup I'd applied for James's approval, feeling my hair return to its natural waves as the carefully constructed facade dissolved. When I reached our apartment, his apartment, really James was methodically packing a suitcase, movements precise and controlled. "I'll stay with Garrett until you find somewhere else," he said without looking up. "I expect you'll need time to make arrangements." "Actually, I'll be gone by the end of the week," I replied, surprising us both. He finally met my eyes, confusion evident beneath his anger. "Where exactly do you plan to go? Your photography doesn't pay rent." "I've been saving," I said simply, unwilling to justify my decisions any further. "This isn't how I expected tonight to end," he admitted, a rare moment of vulnerability breaking through his polished exterior. "Me neither. I thought I'd be celebrating my exhibition with someone who valued my accomplishments." "I valued you," he insisted, voice tight. "I just wanted more for you, for us, than photography and restaurant work." "You wanted more for yourself," I corrected gently. "And there's nothing wrong with ambition, James. But you never really saw me. Not the real me." He stared at me as if trying to reconcile the compliant girlfriend of 3 years with the woman standing before him. "You'll regret this when the excitement of your little show fades and reality sets in." "Maybe," I conceded. "But it will be my regret. My choice. That's worth something too." He returned to packing, the conversation clearly finished. I moved to the spare room where I'd stored my photography equipment, feeling lighter with each step, already mentally cataloging what truly belonged to me versus what I'd acquired to fit into his world. The Audrey who entered that restaurant earlier tonight no longer existed. In her place stood someone new, still uncertain, still learning, but finally, authentically, herself. James left for Garrett's penthouse that night, taking only what he needed for a few days, leaving me surrounded by the artifacts of our shared life. The apartment felt both foreign and familiar, like returning to a childhood home only to find everything slightly smaller than remembered. I spent that first night alone on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket from my pre-James life, cataloging the stars visible through Manhattan's light pollution. 3 years reduced to a suitcase of truly personal belongings. The realization should have terrified me, but instead brought unexpected peace. Morning arrived with a text from James. Take whatever time you need. We can discuss logistics when emotions settle. His clinical approach to heartbreak was oddly comforting in its predictability. I didn't respond, choosing instead to call Tara, my estranged friend, who had seen through James long before I could. Holy shit, she breathed, after I explained everything. You actually did it. I actually did, I confirmed, surprising myself with a genuine laugh. Now I just need somewhere to live. My roommate moved out last month, Tara offered immediately. It's not fancy, but it's yours if you want it. Hell's Kitchen, 2 bedrooms, livable if you don't mind subway noise. By noon, I was viewing the apartment compact but bright, with a fire escape perfect for morning coffee and evening contemplation. By 3, I'd signed a sublet agreement, using savings I'd carefully hidden from James's financial oversight. He always made it seem like I couldn't survive without him, I confessed to Tara, as we celebrated with cheap Prosecco in plastic cups. Like independence was a fantasy. Classic manipulation, she nodded. Isolate, undermine, create dependency. Emotional abuse 101. The term abuse caught me off guard. I'd never applied it to our relationship. James hadn't yelled or threatened. He'd simply chipped away at my self-worth with surgical precision, replacing my dreams with his expectations so gradually I barely noticed. Moving day came 5 days after our breakup. James arranged to be absent, leaving his keys with the doorman and a note on the kitchen counter. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. Call when you're ready to discuss retrieving the rest of your things. No apology, no acknowledgement of his cruelty. Just practical arrangements and subtle implication that I was acting impulsively, that I would eventually come to my senses. Tara and her brother helped load my modest belongings into a rented van. The Canon camera James had gifted me stayed behind a beautiful tool tainted by conditional love. Instead, I packed my old Nikon, slightly outdated, but paid for with my own earnings. The first night in my new apartment brought unexpected tears, not for James, but for the years spent diminishing myself to earn his approval. I cried for the photography opportunities declined because they didn't fit his schedule, for friendships abandoned because they didn't enhance our social capital, for the slow erosion of the woman I'd been before him. Morning brought a text that twisted my stomach. Checked your Instagram. The exhibition looks interesting. When you're done playing artist, we should talk. Everyone makes mistakes. Jay, the breathtaking arrogance positioning himself as the prize I'd foolishly discarded, offering forgiveness I hadn't requested, clarified exactly what I'd escaped. I deleted the message without responding. Days folded into weeks as I established new rhythms. Additional shifts at Bellini's funded proper frames for my exhibition pieces. Evenings were devoted to refining my portfolio under Maya's mentorship. The fire escape became my favorite spot, half workspace, half sanctuary, where I edited photos and rediscovered parts of myself long suppressed. My new home slowly took shape, mismatched furniture from thrift stores, photographs covering walls once kept deliberately bare to showcase James's minimalist taste. I converted half the living room into a studio space, using salvaged wood to build shelving for photography books James had dismissed as cluttering our aesthetic. 1 month after moving out, I encountered James's social media updates, carefully orchestrated displays of his thriving post-Audrey life, photos at exclusive clubs with interchangeable blonde companions, check-ins at restaurants requiring month-long reservation waits. Each image meticulously crafted to showcase the glamorous existence I'd supposedly sacrificed. My finger hovered over the block button before pressing firmly. His digital performance no longer held power over my self-worth. The relief was immediate and profound, one more thread connecting us, severed. You know he's trying to make you jealous, Tara observed over Sunday brunch in my half-furnished apartment. The sad part is, I would have been once, I admitted. Now I just feel sorry for him. Sorry? For James Bradford, golden child of Manhattan finance? He measures everything, relationships, experiences, people by their social or financial value. Nothing exists simply for its own sake. I gestured toward my modest apartment with its secondhand furnishings and photography-filled walls. This might seem like a step down materially, but I can breathe here. I'd forgotten what that felt like. That evening, Eleanor Bradford called an unexpected communication that sent anxiety coursing through me before I answered. Audrey, her cultured voice carried none of the condemnation I'd expected. I hope I'm not overstepping by contacting you directly. Not at all, I managed, perching nervously on my windowsill. James told us about London. And your disagreement. Her careful phrasing suggested James had crafted a narrative that preserved his dignity. I wanted to check that you're all right. The concern seemed genuine, confounding my expectations of maternal loyalty. I'm doing well, actually, I replied honestly, getting ready for a photography exhibition. Yes, in Soho. James mentioned it. A pause then. He never quite understood your work, did he? The simple acknowledgement that she recognized her son's limitations where I was concerned released something tight within my chest. No, he didn't. Would you send me details of the exhibition? I've always appreciated photography, though, James takes after his father, in preferring investments over art. The conversation ended with her unexpected support and my promise to forward exhibition information. Another assumption shattered that James's family would unanimously condemn my choices. 2 months post-breakup, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. Had dinner at Bellini's tonight. Asked for your section, but they said you're only working weekends now. Hope that means good things for your photography. This is Nathan, by the way. From the community center exhibition. I vaguely remembered him tall, glasses, kind eyes, asking thoughtful questions about my urban isolation series. He'd mentioned being a veterinarian, one of the few attendees genuinely interested in the work rather than networking opportunities. Our coffee date the following week felt refreshingly uncomplicated conversation, flowing naturally about photography, his veterinary practice, books we'd both enjoyed. When he suggested dinner the following weekend, my immediate impulse was self-protective hesitation. I should mention I've recently ended a long-term relationship, I explained. I'm still processing everything. Nathan's response was simple. No pressure. I just enjoy getting to know you better. Whatever pace feels right. His kiss goodnight outside my apartment building triggered unexpected panic memories of James' subtle manipulations flooding back, leaving me trembling on the sidewalk. I'm sorry, I gasped, stepping backward. I thought I was ready, but Nathan's response, concerned rather than annoyed, patient rather than pressuring, offered another revelation about healthy interaction. No apologies needed, he assured me. Some wounds take time to heal. I'm not going anywhere. His understanding, so different from James's calculated responses, illuminated another truth. Genuine connection couldn't be measured by Manhattan real estate or professional achievements. It existed in small kindnesses, in respect for boundaries, in seeing someone clearly without agenda or assessment. While romantically cautious, my professional confidence grew steadily. Maya's mentorship pushed my technical skills while encouraging the emotional authenticity that made my work distinctive. My Instagram following expanded beyond friends and family to include photography enthusiasts and industry professionals. The greatest test came 3 months after the breakup, when James and Rachel entered Bellini's during my Saturday shift. Their table assignment in my section seemed deliberately orchestrated for maximum dramatic impact. Audrey, James acknowledged with practiced casualness. You look well, thank you, I replied, professional smile firmly in place. Still working here, I see. The comment, designed to highlight what he perceived as my continued mediocrity, slid past without impact. Still following my passion, I corrected gently. The daily special is seared scallops with butternut squash risotto. Can I start you with drinks? The interaction lasted less than 5 minutes, but represented profound growth. James's presence no longer destabilized my sense of self. His opinion, once the measuring stick for my worth, had been relegated to background noise. Later that night, alone in my apartment, with its photography-lined walls and secondhand furniture, I felt genuine gratitude for the painful awakening our breakup had triggered. The woman who had once contorted herself to fit James Bradford's expectations now stood firmly on her own foundation, imperfect but authentically herself. 3 months post-breakup found me in a rhythm that felt both challenging and sustainable. Waitressing shifts funded my basic expenses while leaving time for photography, a practical balance that James would have dismissed as lacking ambition. Maya's mentorship pushed my technical skills while encouraging the emotional authenticity that made my work distinctive. Your urban isolation series needs 3 more pieces to feel complete, she advised during a portfolio review. Something that captures the transition from isolation to connection. The suggestion sparked an intensive creative period, late nights in my makeshift home studio, early mornings capturing New York's shifting moods before waitressing shifts. Exhaustion became a constant companion, but unlike the emotional depletion of maintaining James's standards, this fatigue felt productive evidence of meaningful effort rather than performative perfection. My apartment transformed alongside my portfolio. Walls once deliberately bare to showcase James's minimalist taste now displayed photographs, both mine and artists I admired. Furniture collected from thrift stores and sidewalk finds replaced the catalog-perfect aesthetic he'd insisted upon. Each edition mismatched but intentional represented reclaimed autonomy. The most unexpected development came 6 weeks before the exhibition when Eleanor Bradford contacted me again. "I'm in the city for the weekend," she explained over the phone. "Perhaps we could meet for tea?" We convened at a quiet cafe in the West Village neutral territory, far from James's usual haunts. Eleanor arrived precisely on time. Elegant as always, but somehow less intimidating without her son's narrative coloring my perception. "James is fully committed to London now," she offered after pleasantries. "He leaves next month to secure housing before the position officially begins." I nodded, unsure why she was sharing information I hadn't requested. "I've been reflecting on your relationship," she continued, surprising me. "I fear I contributed to its dysfunction." The admission, so contrary to the Bradford family's carefully maintained facade of perfection, rendered me momentarily speechless. "James has always been rewarded for achievement rather than character," she continued when I didn't respond. "His father and I emphasized outcomes over process, prestige over passion. We created someone who measures relationships by their utility rather than their depth." "That's remarkably self-aware," I managed, finally. A sad smile crossed her face. "Divorce, after 40 years, provides unexpected clarity. William and I perfected the outwardly successful marriage while living essentially separate lives. I fear James internalized our example." The conversation shifted from James to Art Eleanor, revealing herself as genuinely knowledgeable about photography, particularly documentary and street styles that resonated with my work. "I studied art history before marriage redirected my focus," she explained. "One of many compromises that seemed insignificant until they accumulated into a life half-lived." Her interest in my exhibition seemed genuine, her questions thoughtful rather than performatively supportive. When she asked to see my portfolio, the request felt motivated by artistic appreciation rather than polite obligation. "You have a gift for finding dignity in overlooked moments," she observed, studying a portrait of an elderly man feeding pigeons in Washington Square Park. "That's much rarer than technical proficiency." Our tea extended to dinner, conversation flowing with unexpected ease. When we parted, she hesitated briefly before embracing me. "I hope this isn't overstepping, but I'm proud of the choice you made," she said quietly. "Choosing your authentic path over security requires tremendous courage." Her words' validation from an unexpected source carried healing power I hadn't anticipated. If Eleanor Bradford could recognize my decision as strength rather than failure, perhaps I could fully embrace that perspective too. As exhibition preparations intensified, Maya connected me with industry contacts who provided practical advice about pricing, artist statements, and navigating the business aspects of creative work. My Instagram following grew beyond friends and family to include photography enthusiasts and gallery owners interested in emerging talent. Nathan remained present but undemanding, our relationship developing at a pace that honored my ongoing recovery. Our third date ended with another panic attack when he casually mentioned weekend plans, triggering memories of how James had gradually claimed ownership of my schedule. "I'm sorry," I apologized, hands trembling around my coffee cup. "Sometimes these reactions ambush me. It's not about you." Instead of frustration, Nathan responded with gentle understanding. "Healing isn't linear. Take whatever space you need." His patience, so different from James's calculated responses, illuminated another truth about genuine connection. It couldn't be measured by Manhattan, real estate, or professional achievements, but existed in small kindnesses, in respect for boundaries, in seeing someone clearly without agenda or assessment. 2 months before the exhibition, I received a message from James, the first direct communication since our breakup. "Heard from Mother that you're doing well. Genuinely glad. Perhaps we could meet before London? Provide proper closure? Jay." The message triggered less emotional response than I'd expected, neither anger nor longing, just mild curiosity about his motivation. After careful consideration, I declined politely but firmly, recognizing that closure often served the person who had caused harm rather than the one who had survived it. My photography continued evolving, the urban isolation series expanding to include glimpses of unexpected connection amid city indifference. The final piece, a morning shot of diverse New Yorkers helping a fallen elderly woman momentarily united by compassionate purpose, completed the narrative arc Maya had encouraged. "This is exhibition ready," she confirmed during our final review session. "Your technical skills have always been strong, but there's emotional maturity here that elevates the entire collection." 1 week before the exhibition, scrolling through Instagram between waitressing shifts, I discovered James had begun featuring Rachel prominently in his social media weekend trips to the Hamptons, dinner at exclusive restaurants, coordinated outfits suggesting deliberate image cultivation. The relationship announcement included a pointed caption: "Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you to what you actually need." The transparent attempt to reframe our breakup as his victory might once have devastated me. Instead, it triggered genuine laughter, the performative happiness so obviously designed for an audience of one. "Looks like I've been replaced." I showed Tara the post during our weekly dinner. "Upgraded, you mean," she corrected, examining the carefully staged photos. "She's welcome to him. You've got actual freedom." The night before the exhibition, I received an unexpected message from Carlos, my former Bellini's colleague. "Just heard about your exhibition from management. Entire waitstaff planning to attend opening night to support our own. Proud of you, Audrey." Their planned attendance, genuine support from people James had dismissed as inconsequential to my professional advancement, underscored how thoroughly my definition of success had transformed. Approval from authentic connections had replaced the hollow validation of James's social circle. That evening, alone in my apartment preparing final exhibition details, I studied the woman reflected in my bathroom mirror, no longer the carefully curated version crafted for James's approval, but someone both familiar and new. The external changes were subtle: hair returned to its natural waves, makeup minimal rather than precisely applied, clothing chosen for comfort rather than impression management. The internal transformation proved harder to articulate, but more profound: confidence rooted in creative integrity rather than external validation, boundaries established through painful experience, perspective clarified by contrast between authentic connection and performative partnership. When Nathan called to wish me luck with final preparations, our conversation flowed with comfortable familiarity. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he said before hanging up, "you've already succeeded by creating work that matters to you." The simple validation, acknowledging my photography's worth independent of commercial success, crystallized how dramatically my priorities had shifted since James's devastating assessment of my future. Success no longer meant external markers of achievement, but alignment between values and actions, between authentic self and daily choices. Standing amid my transformed apartment photography equipment, organized for morning transport, exhibition clothes carefully selected, walls adorned with images capturing my distinctive perspective, I experienced profound gratitude for James's cruelty at that fateful dinner. His dismissal, intended to diminish, had instead catalyzed authentic growth. The woman who had once contorted herself to fit James Bradford's expectations now stood firmly on her own foundation, imperfect but authentically herself, creating work that mattered regardless of its market value or social capital. Perhaps that was the most unexpected transformation of all, recognizing that being deemed worthless by someone who measured value in status and financial metrics had freed me to discover more meaningful forms of wealth. Exhibition day arrived with gentle September sunshine and unexpected calm. While setting up at Maya's gallery, I remained present rather than future-focused, appreciating each moment rather than fixating on potential outcomes. The space transformed as my photographs found their places, urban isolation giving way to glimpses of connection, the narrative arc visible when viewed as a collection. "We're expecting solid attendance," Maya mentioned casually. "The arts section mentioned you in their emerging talents column last week." The information registered without triggering the anxiety such attention would have caused months earlier. Exhibition, success, or failure no longer defined my worth, a perspective shift that allowed genuine enjoyment of the process, regardless of outcomes. By 6 o'clock, gallery lighting softened the space as staff made final adjustments. I retreated to the small back office to change replacing setup clothes with a vintage emerald dress purchased from a Brooklyn thrift shop, its uniqueness reflecting my reclaimed authenticity. At 6:30, Maya squeezed my hand reassuringly before opening the doors. "Remember to breathe," she advised with a knowing smile. "Your first exhibition is a landmark moment. Try to stay present enough to actually experience it." The initial trickle of attendees quickly became a steady stream, familiar faces interspersed with strangers drawn by promotions or passing interest. Tara arrived with supportive friends, followed by Carlos leading a contingent of Bellini's staff. Nathan appeared with a simple bouquet of wildflowers, his quiet pride more meaningful than elaborate gestures. "These are extraordinary," commented a thin man in wire-rimmed glasses, studying my centerpiece photograph, the fallen elderly woman surrounded by diverse helpers. "The composition creates tension between isolation and connection without resolving it artificially." I thanked him sincerely, before Maya subtly indicated his importance, renowned critic, whose reviews could legitimize emerging artists. The information registered without triggering the desperate need for validation that once would have dominated my interaction. By 8 o'clock, the gallery hummed with conversation and appreciation. 3 red dots had appeared beside photographs, indicating sales at prices that would have seemed impossible months earlier. Discussing technical details with genuinely interested attendees felt natural rather than performative, authentic exchanges about creative choices rather than self-promotional networking. Then Eleanor Bradford entered elegant in understated navy, drawing curious glances from those who recognized the socialite in this decidedly downtown setting. "Audrey," she embraced me warmly, genuine pride evident in her expression. "The collection is remarkable, especially the narrative progression from isolation to tentative connection." She introduced her companions, 2 serious collectors and a curator from a significant uptown gallery, with the subtle networking skills I'd once envied in James. Their business cards disappeared into my clutch with grateful acknowledgement rather than desperate relief. As Eleanor circulated among other guests, I noticed a familiar figure hovering near the entrance, James, expression unreadable as he surveyed the unexpectedly successful scene. Our eyes met briefly across the crowded space, his widening slightly at the gallery's evident success. After a moment's hesitation, he approached with careful nonchalance, designer suit, and perfect grooming contrasting with the gallery's artistic informality. "Quite the turnout," he observed, gesturing vaguely toward the crowded space. "Mother insisted I stop by before London, said I should see what you've accomplished." The comment, simultaneously acknowledging success while suggesting his presence represented special validation, embodied everything problematic about our relationship. "It's been a transformative few months," I replied simply, neither welcoming nor dismissive. His gaze shifted to nearby photographs, urban isolation captured with technical precision and emotional honesty. "These are actually quite good," he admitted, surprise evident despite his attempted casualness. "You've clearly developed since the community center exhibition." The backhanded compliment, suggesting my talent emerged only after our relationship ended, might once have triggered insecurity. Instead, I recognized the statement's true purpose: reclaiming influence over my success narrative. "My work was always this good, James," I corrected gently. "You just never really looked." His expression tightened momentarily before reshaping into practiced charm. "Perhaps I pushed you harder than you realized. Sometimes people need that final challenge to reach their potential." The breathtaking reframing, positioning his cruelty as purposeful motivation rather than dismissive judgment, crystallized how thoroughly I'd escaped his manipulative gravity. "My success happened despite you, not because of you," I stated quietly, maintaining eye contact. "But I genuinely wish you well in London." Before he could respond, Maya appeared at my elbow. "Audrey, the journal's arts writer wants a few words. And your centerpiece just sold to a significant collector." James's expression flickered between displeasure at the interruption and recalculation based on the information. "We should catch up properly before I leave," he suggested, extending his business card with practiced smoothness. "Perhaps dinner next week?" I left the card on a nearby surface with gentle finality. "I don't think that's necessary. Our paths have diverged for good reason, James." His momentary confusion, encountering boundaries where once he'd found malleability, quickly transformed to practiced indifference. "Well, congratulations on the exhibition. It's certainly interesting." With that carefully measured final assessment, he departed, leaving behind neither devastation nor longing, just appreciation for the contrast between authentic connection and performative relationship. The remainder of the evening passed in meaningful conversation with people genuinely interested in my prospective collectors who purchased prints, fellow photographers offering collegial support, gallery owners discussing future opportunities. Maya introduced me to contacts who could advance my career without diminishing my creative vision. By closing time, 7 photographs displayed sold dots, representing income that would sustain me beyond waitressing for several months. More importantly, substantive connections had formed with industry professionals who valued my distinctive perspective rather than seeking to reshape it. The after-exhibition dinner gathered my authentic support system, Tara, and close friends, Bellini's colleagues, Nathan, Maya, and surprisingly, Eleanor Bradford, who joined briefly to toast the success before discreetly departing. "To seeing what others overlook," Maya proposed, raising her glass amid the relaxed celebration, "and to the courage of authentic vision." The gathering extended past midnight, conversation flowing without performance or calculation. When Nathan walked me home in the early morning hours, his kiss triggered connection rather than panic, authentic attraction without psychological manipulation. "I'm proud of you," he said simply, understanding the evening represented more than professional advancement. 3 months later, Maya's partnership offer provided sustainable income that allowed gradual transition from restaurant work to photography. My Instagram following expanded through genuine artistic connection rather than strategic networking, creating opportunities based on creative merit rather than social capital. The magazine positioned staff photographer documenting everyday New York materialized through connections formed at the exhibition, offering healthcare benefits alongside creative fulfillment. Leaving Bellini's involved genuine sadness alongside professional advancement appreciation for the workplace that had sustained me through transformation. James's continued social media performance, London life, carefully curated to display success and happiness, gradually disappeared from my awareness as I muted rather than monitored his digital presence. The text messages, initially frequent with transparent attempts to reclaim narrative control, eventually ceased when consistently met with polite disengagement. My new artist loft, purchased with exhibition proceeds and magazine advance, represented freedom rather than status, its converted industrial space providing both living quarters and photography studio. The decor reflected authentic preferences rather than catalog perfection vintage furniture, interspersed with plants and photography books, once hidden to maintain James's minimalist aesthetic. When Eleanor visited during her quarterly New York trip, her appreciation seemed genuine rather than performative. "You've created something remarkable here," she observed, studying the space with genuine interest. Not just the physical environment, but the life it represents. 6 months post-exhibition, teaching a photography workshop for high school girls provided unexpected fulfillment, sharing technical skills while emphasizing the importance of authentic perspective. Watching young women develop confidence through creative expression brought the journey full circle transformation, extending beyond personal growth to meaningful contribution. The final photograph in my second exhibition, scheduled at a significantly larger gallery, captured a simple moment that embodied complete transformation. A woman silhouetted against dawn light, camera raised toward limitless horizon, positioned at the threshold between shadow and illumination. Its title, displayed on a simple card beside the image, needed no elaborate explanation: Future Reclaimed. The woman who once believed her worth depended on external validation had discovered a fundamental truth. Authentic value emerges not from others' assessment, but from alignment between inner truth and outer expression. The future James deemed non-existent had materialized not despite my choices, but because of them: creative integrity, generating opportunities more meaningful than status-based advancement. What looks like failure from one perspective often represents liberation from another, rejection becoming redirection toward authentic purpose. Sometimes losing what you think you want leads to discovering what you actually need. Not a partner who measures your worth by their standards, but the courage to define success by your own. Have you ever had someone underestimate you, only to discover that their dismissal became your greatest motivation? Share your story of proving someone wrong in the comments below. And if you found inspiration in this journey from rejection to reclamation, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this reminder. Sometimes no future simply means freedom to create your own.